A small silver ship tumbled through Earth's atmosphere like a broken toy thrown by an angry child. Zixthara pressed all four of its thin arms against the control panel, trying to stop the violent spinning. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. Inside the tiny cockpit, the ship's computer spoke in its calm voice, listing all the systems that were failing. Hull breach in Section 3. Life support at 30%. Landing thrusters offline. Zixthara had never felt fear like this before. The Valani people had traveled between stars for thousands of years, but they had always been careful. They avoided dangerous places and dangerous people. They fixed problems with logic and patience, but there was no time for logic now. The ground was coming up fast. The ship hit the earth with a sound like thunder. Metal scraped against concrete and stone. Zixthara was thrown forward into the safety straps. The world spun around and around until everything went black. When Zixthara woke up, smoke was filling the cockpit. The alien's long neck hurt, and green blood was dripping from a cut on its forehead. It pushed the emergency release button, and the cockpit door hissed open. Fresh air rushed in, but it smelled wrong. It smelled like burning things and death. Zixthara climbed out of the wrecked ship and looked around. The alien had landed in what used to be a city. Tall buildings stood like broken teeth against the gray sky. Most of their windows were gone. Holes from explosions marked the walls like scars. Cars and trucks sat abandoned in the streets, some of them still burning. The silence was the worst part. Zixthara came from a world where cities hummed with the sounds of millions of people living peaceful lives. Here, the only sounds were distant. Explosions and the wind blowing through empty buildings. Something moved in the shadows between two crashed cars. Zixthara froze. Two creatures stepped into the light, and the aliens' hearts started beating faster. These were humans. Zixthara had studied them from far away, but had never seen them up close. They were shorter than Valani, but built much thicker. They wore green and brown clothing that looked rough and dirty. Both carried long metal objects that Zixthara recognized as weapons. The male human had dark skin and kind eyes, but his face looked tired. The female human had black hair tied back and moved like she was ready to fight. "What the hell is that thing?" the male human said. He pointed his weapon at Zixthara, but kept it lowered. "I don't know, Jake," the female human replied. She kept her weapon ready. "Looks like it came out of that ship." Zixthara slowly reached for the small device on its belt. A universal translator would help them understand each other. It hoped these humans would not shoot first and ask questions later. "Please," Zixthara said through the translator. The device made its words sound strange, but the humans could understand them. "I mean no harm. My ship crashed. I am hurt." Jake and the female human looked at each other. They seemed to be talking without words, just with their eyes. "It talks, Lisa," Jake said. "I can hear that," Lisa replied. She did not lower her weapon. "Where are you from?" "Far away," Zixthara said. "Very far. I was traveling through space when my ship broke. I did not choose to come here." "Lucky you," Lisa said with a bitter laugh. "You picked the worst place on Earth to crash." Jake moved closer, but he was careful. "Are there more of you coming?" "No," Zixthara said. "I am alone. I was studying stars, not looking for your world." "What is this place?" "This is Detroit," Jake said. "Or what's left of it. We've been fighting here for 3 months." "Fighting?" Zixthara asked. The translator struggled with the concept. The Villani had words for disagreement and debate, but nothing like what these humans meant. "War," Lisa said simply. "Humans killing other humans." The alien's large eyes grew even larger. This was impossible. The Vellani had studied human radio signals for decades. They knew humans had conflicts, but they thought these were small disagreements between tiny groups. The idea that entire populations would fight each other was beyond understanding. Why? Zixthara asked. Jake laughed, but there was no joy in it. That's a long story, friend. The short version is we want different things, and we can't agree on how to get them. A loud whistle filled the air. Both humans dropped to the ground immediately. Jake grabbed Zixthara and pulled the alien down behind a broken wall. Incoming. Lisa shouted. The ground shook as something exploded 2 blocks away. Pieces of concrete and glass rained down on them. Zixthara had never experienced anything like this. The Vellani solved problems by talking until everyone agreed. If that failed, they simply moved away from each other. What was that? Zixthara asked when the shaking stopped. Artillery, Jake said. The other side is trying to push us back. Other side? The Western Federation, Lisa explained. We're Eastern Coalition. Different ideas about how the world should work. More whistles filled the air. Jake looked at his watch. Daily bombardment, he said, right on time. They do this every day at 1400 hours. Zixthara could not believe what it was hearing. These humans had turned destruction into a schedule. They fought each other with the same planning. That the Vellani used to build cities. Come on, Lisa said. We need to get you somewhere safer. Command will want to talk to you. As they moved through the ruined streets, Zixthara saw more things that shocked it. Human children, some no older, than Vellani younglings, helped carry supplies to fighting positions. They moved with confidence through the destruction, like it was normal. Adult humans worked together to fix weapons and plan attacks with the same calm efficiency that Vellani used to tend gardens. In one building. The aliens saw humans caring for their wounded. But these same humans had maps on the walls showing how to hurt their enemies more effectively. They healed and harmed with equal skill. This is madness, Zixthara whispered. Jake heard the comment. Maybe, he said, but it's our madness, and we're pretty good at it. As they walked deeper into the war zone, Zixthara began to understand that it had not just crashed on a planet. It had crashed into a nightmare that these humans had created, and somehow learned to live inside. The aliens' simple mission to study distant stars had become something much more complicated. It was about to learn what humans really were. 3 weeks had passed since Zixthara crashed into the human war zone. The alien now lived in an underground shelter with Jake's unit. Every day brought new horrors that made the peaceful Vellani's mind struggle to understand what it was seeing. The humans had turned the basement of an old hospital into their command center. Maps covered every wall, marked with colored pins and lines that showed where enemies were and where friends might be. Zixthara watched the humans update these maps. Every few hours, as the battle lines moved back and forth like waves on a beach. Grid 77 is clear, a young soldier named Tony reported as he entered the room. His uniform was torn and dirty, and his left arm was wrapped in bloody bandages. But he smiled as he spoke. We pushed them back 2 blocks. Good work, said Captain Ben Parker. He was older than most of the other soldiers, with gray hair and scars on his hands. How many civilians did we get out? 43, Tony replied. Families with kids mostly. They're scared, but they're alive. Zixthara had been documenting everything it saw. The aliens' people needed to know about these humans when the rescue ship came, but every day the report became more confusing. These humans fought each other, but they also protected each other. They destroyed buildings, but they saved the people inside them. The alien watched Captain Parker study the maps. The human pointed to a red area, marked with warning symbols. The Federation has civilians trapped in the school here, Parker said to his team. Intel says they're using them as human shields. That's against the rules, Lisa said. Her face showed anger. We have agreements about civilians. Rules. Agreements. Even in the middle of their war, humans had rules about how to fight. The Velani had never needed such rules because they had never fought anyone. But humans fought so much that they had written instructions for how to do it properly. We go in tonight, Parker decided. Quiet approach. We get the civilians out first, then deal with the Federation soldiers. Zixtara followed the team as they prepared for the mission. The alien watched them clean their weapons with the same care that Velani used to tend their gardens. They checked their equipment twice and helped each other put on protective gear. But what shocked Zixtara most was how they talked to each other. Jake told a funny story about his sister back home. Lisa shared food with everyone. Tony sang a song while he loaded ammunition. These humans were about to risk their lives in battle, but they acted like they were preparing for a celebration. You're coming with us, Parker told Zixtara. We need your eyes. You can see in the dark better than we can. I do not fight. Zixtara said quickly, My people do not hurt others. We're not asking you to hurt anyone, Parker replied. We're asking you to help us save people. That's different. The alien thought about this. Helping to save lives was not the same as taking lives. Maybe it could do this without breaking the peaceful ways of its people. They moved through the dark streets like shadows. Zixtara was amazed at how quietly the humans could move when they wanted to. These same people who made so much noise. During the day became almost invisible at night. The school was a large brick building surrounded by enemy soldiers. Zixtara counted 20 human guards walking around the outside. Inside, the alien could see the heat signatures of many more people. Most were small, probably children. Thermal shows 52 civilians in the main hall, Zixtara whispered. 12 enemy soldiers inside with them. Parker nodded. He used hand signals to tell his team what to do. The humans had a whole language of finger movements and arm positions. They could plan complicated operations without making any sound. The attack happened so fast that Zixtara almost missed it. The humans moved like they had practiced this exact situation hundreds of times. Some of them took out the guards outside, while others went in through windows. No shots were fired. The enemy soldiers were captured or knocked unconscious before. They could raise an alarm, but what happened next made Zixtara's minds race with confusion. The humans did not hurt their prisoners. Instead, they gave them water and treated their wounds. Jake even shared his food with an enemy soldier who looked hungry. Why? Zixtara asked Jake later. These humans were your enemies. They would have killed you. Maybe, Jake said, but they're also just people doing what they think is right. Same as us. When the fighting stops, we all have to live on the same planet. The alien watched as the rescued civilians were taken to safety. Human children hugged human soldiers. Parents cried with relief. But some of the civilians were from the other side of the war. They spoke different languages and wore different clothes. Yet the soldiers treated them all the same. Dr. Kate Johnson arrived to check on the rescued people. She was a medical doctor who worked in the war zone. Zixtara had seen her before, treating wounded soldiers from both sides of the conflict. How are they? Parker asked her. Scared and hungry, but they'll be fine, Kate replied. The children are tough. Kids always are in situations like this. Kids should not have to be tough, Zixtara said. Kate looked at the alien with sad eyes. No, they shouldn't. But human children learn to adapt. It's what we do. We adapt to whatever world we find ourselves in. As they walked back to their base, Zixtara saw more examples of human strangeness. Soldiers shared jokes while they stood guard duty. A group of fighters had turned part of their shelter into a small garden where they grew vegetables. Someone had painted a picture on the wall, showing a peaceful landscape with flowers and trees. These humans carried images of peace with them, even in the middle of war. They created beauty in the ugliest places. They showed kindness to enemies and protected people they had never met. "Your species confuses me," Zixthara told Lisa as they reached their shelter. "We confuse ourselves sometimes," Lisa replied with a tired smile, "but we keep trying to figure it out." That night, Zixthara lay on its sleeping mat and tried to understand what it had seen. The humans fought each other with terrible weapons, but they also saved each other with incredible courage. They destroyed buildings, but they preserved lives. They followed rules even when breaking them might help them win. The aliens' report to its people was becoming more complicated every day. How could it explain that these humans were dangerous and gentle at the same time? How could it describe a species that had turned warfare into an art form, but still remembered to be merciful? Outside, the sounds of distant fighting continued through the night. But inside the shelter, human voices could be heard telling stories, sharing memories, and planning for a future beyond the war. Zixthara was beginning to suspect that the nightmare was not what the humans did to each other. The nightmare was that the peaceful Vellani had never learned to do anything at all. 2 months after the crash, Zixthara's ship was still broken beyond repair. The alien had grown used to the daily rhythm of human warfare. Morning briefings, afternoon battles, evening reports. The humans had turned chaos into a schedule, and somehow that made it less frightening. The alien spent most of its time with Lieutenant Mike Chun, who had the job of training new soldiers. Zixthara watched as young humans, barely adults, learned the skills they would need to survive in combat. But the training was not what the alien expected. Rule number 1, Mike told a group of new recruits. Never shoot unless you can see your target clearly. Innocent people die when you fire blind shots. Rule number 2, always check what's behind your target. Bullets go through walls and windows. Someone's family might be on the other side. Rule number 3, when someone surrenders, they become a prisoner, not a victim. You treat prisoners with respect. Zixthara listened to dozens of rules like these. The humans had spent thousands of years learning how to fight, but they had also spent the time learning how not to fight. They had rules about who could be attacked and who must be protected. They had rules about what weapons could be used and when to stop using them. "Why do you have so many rules?" Zixthara asked Mike during a break in training. "Because war brings out the worst in people," Mike replied. "These rules help us remember to stay human, even when we're doing inhuman things." The alien thought about this. The Vellani had no rules about fighting because they never fought. But humans fought so much that they needed complicated systems to control their own violence. It was like they had built walls around their anger to keep it from destroying everything. During the 3rd month, Zixthara met Dr. Kate Johnson again. Kate worked in the medical tent, which stood between the two armies. Soldiers from both sides brought their wounded there for treatment. The alien watched as Kate treated a Federation soldier who had been shot while trying to kill coalition troops that morning. "This human tried to hurt your friends," Zixthara said. "Why do you help him?" "Because he's hurt," Kate replied simply. When someone is wounded, they stop being an enemy. They become a patient. Kate showed Zixthara the Red Cross symbol painted on the tent. This means medical area. Both sides have agreed not to attack this place. Doctors and nurses are protected during war. Protected by whom? By everyone. Even our enemies protect our medical workers, because they know their doctors are protected too. The aliens struggled to understand this. Humans who spent their days trying to kill each other had agreed to keep some people safe. They had made laws about war that both sides followed, even when breaking those laws might help them win. A few days later, everything changed. The aliens' small shelter was discovered by a Western Federation patrol. Zixthara woke up to find 5 enemy soldiers pointing weapons at it. The aliens' hearts started beating fast. These humans belonged to the other side of the war. They were the enemy, but they did not shoot. "Stand up slowly," said the leader, a woman with colonel's marks on her uniform. "Keep your hands where we can see them." Zixthara obeyed. The alien expected to be killed or tortured. That was what enemies did to each other in the stories the Valani told about primitive species. "I am Colonel Steve Adams," the woman said. "I know what you are. We've been watching you for weeks. You will kill me now?" Zixthara asked. Colonel Adams looked surprised. "Kill you? Why would we do that? You're not a combatant. You're a refugee." The alien did not understand the word. "A refugee is someone who ends up in a war zone by accident," Adams explained. "Someone who doesn't belong to either side. We don't hurt refugees. We protect them." Adams and her soldiers took Zixthara to their own base. The alien expected to be locked up or questioned harshly. Instead, they gave it food and a clean place to sleep. They treated it exactly like Jake and Lisa had treated it months earlier. "We know you've been living with coalition forces," Adams said during their first conversation. "We want to know what you've learned about their operations." "I will not betray my friends," Zixthara said firmly. Adams smiled. "I respect that. But I'm not asking you to betray anyone. I'm asking you to help both sides end this war with fewer people dying." The colonel showed Zixthara maps of the surrounding area. "Your people have technology we don't understand. If you could help us communicate better with the coalition, we might be able to work out a ceasefire." "You want to stop fighting?" "We want to stop killing," Adams corrected. "Fighting and killing are different things. We can fight over ideas without shooting each other." Over the next few weeks, Zixthara learned that both sides of the human war wanted the same basic things. They wanted their families to be safe. They wanted enough food and clean water. They wanted their children to have better lives than they did. The difference was in how they thought these things should be achieved. The alien watched as Adams and her officers planned their next operation. They moved small models around on a table, showing how their forces would attack coalition positions. But even as they planned to fight, they also planned to minimize casualties. "Civilian evacuation starts at 0600, Adams told her staff. "We give them 2 hours to get clear before we move in." "What if the coalition uses that time to reinforce their positions?" asked a major. "Then we'll have a harder fight," Adams replied. "But we won't have dead civilians on our hands." Zixthara realized that human warfare was not about cruelty or hatred. It was about solving problems that could not be solved any other way. Both sides believed they were right. Both sides believed they were protecting their people. Both sides tried to win while still following rules that limited how much damage they could cause. The aliens started to see the patterns in human behavior. They competed with each other constantly, but they also cooperated when it mattered. They hurt each other, but they also healed each other. They destroyed things, but they also built things. They fought wars, but they also made peace. During a major battle, Zixthara watched from a safe distance as hundreds of humans coordinated their actions across miles of battlefield. Ships in the ocean fired at targets inland. Aircraft dropped supplies to ground troops. Satellites in space provided information to commanders on the ground. Radio operators translated messages between different languages. It was the most complex cooperative effort the alien had ever witnessed. Thousands of humans working together to achieve a single goal. The fact that the goal was military victory did not make the cooperation less impressive. "Your species amazes me," Zixthara told Colonel Adams that evening. We amaze ourselves sometimes, Adams replied. Usually not in good ways. But Zixthara was beginning to think that humans did not understand their own strengths. They saw war as a failure of peace. But the aliens saw war as the most advanced form of organized activity in the galaxy. No other species could coordinate so many individuals toward such complex goals under such difficult conditions. The nightmare was not that humans fought wars. The nightmare was that they were so good at it. The rescue ship arrived on a cold morning in November. Zixthara watched the sleek Velani vessel descend from the clouds like a silver tear falling from the sky. After 4 months in the human war zone, the sight of its own people's technology filled the alien with mixed feelings. Commander Veltar emerged from the ship with 4 other Velani. They wore the white robes of the Science Council and moved with the calm grace that marked their peaceful species. To Zixthara, they looked like beings from another universe. "You have survived," Veltar said, touching Zixthara's forehead in a traditional greeting. "We feared the worst when we received your distress signal from this primitive world." Primitive, Zixthara repeated the word slowly. 4 months ago, the alien would have agreed. Now the word felt wrong. Colonel Adams and Captain Parker had arranged a temporary ceasefire so the rescue could happen safely. Human soldiers from both sides stood guard around the landing area, their weapons lowered but ready. They watched the Velani with curious eyes, but kept their distance. "These creatures have been fighting a war," Veltar observed, looking at the human soldiers. "How horrible for you to be trapped among such violence." Zixthara looked at Jake and Lisa, who stood nearby. Jake gave a small wave. Lisa nodded with respect. These humans had protected the alien, fed it, and treated it like family. They had risked their lives to keep it safe. "They are not what they appear to be," Zixthara said carefully. "Of course not," Veltar replied. "Primitive species often have hidden depths. But violence corrupts everything it touches. We must leave this place quickly before their savage nature affects you further." The rescue team began loading Zixthara's belongings onto their ship. The alien had collected many things during its stay with the humans. Photographs of human soldiers helping civilians. Recordings of humans singing songs during battle. Medical reports showing how humans treated wounded enemies. "What is all this?" asked scientist Kethra, looking through the collection. "Evidence," Zixthara replied. "Documentation of what I witnessed here." As they prepared to leave, explosions echoed in the distance. A new battle was starting between the human armies. A Velani rescue team moved faster, eager to escape before the violence reached them. But Zixthara stood still, listening to the sounds of war. The alien could hear the careful timing of the attacks, the coordinated responses, the disciplined retreat when positions became impossible to hold. What the Velani heard as chaos, Zixthara now recognized as a complex symphony of controlled aggression. "We must go," Veltar urged. "This world is too dangerous." "No," Zixthara said quietly. "We are the ones who are dangerous." The other Velani stared at their rescued colleague in shock. No Velani had ever called their own people dangerous. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of absolute peace. "The humans have infected your mind," Kethra said with concern. "Violence is a disease that spreads through observation. We will heal you when we return home." Zixthara looked at the human soldiers one more time. These beings had shown the alien things that no Velani had ever imagined. They had demonstrated that conflict could be controlled, that violence could be limited, that enemies could become friends when the fighting stopped. The alien climbed aboard the rescue ship, but its mind was already planning what it would say to the High Council. 3 days later, Zixthara stood before the 100 members of the Velani ruling body. The great hall was filled with beings who had never known war, never faced an enemy, never had to make life or death decisions under pressure. They lived in perfect peace on a perfect world where all problems were solved through calm discussion. Tell us of your ordeal among the savage humans, commanded High Counselor Zephyrin. Zixthara activated the holographic display and showed images from Earth. Destroyed cities, armed soldiers, burning vehicles. The council members made sounds of disgust and fear. Horrible, whispered one counselor. Such primitive brutality. Yes, Zixthara agreed. It appears horrible at first glance. But I must tell you what I learned during my time there. The alien showed new images. Human medics treating wounded enemies. Soldiers sharing food with prisoners. Children being evacuated to safety during battles. The council watched in confused silence. These humans fight wars, but they fight them with rules. Zixthara explained. They hurt each other, but they also heal each other. They destroy, but they also protect. They have learned to control their violent nature and use it only when necessary. Violence is never necessary, High Counselor Zephyrin declared. The Velani way is the only civilized way. The Velani way works only in a perfect universe, Zixthara replied. But the universe is not perfect. There are species out there who do not share our peaceful nature. There are threats that cannot be reasoned with or avoided. The alien activated another display, showing star charts of the galaxy beyond Velani space. We have been lucky, Zixthara continued. For 10,000 years, we have hidden from danger instead of facing it. We have avoided conflict instead of learning to manage it. But luck does not last forever. The council stirred uneasily. They had built their entire civilization on the belief that peace was always possible, that violence was always wrong, that conflicts could always be resolved through patience and wisdom. What are you suggesting? Asked Counselor Mireth. I am suggesting that we have been living in a dream, Zixthara said. The humans showed me what happens when a species prepares for reality instead of hoping reality will be kind to them. The alien showed final images from Earth. Humans working together to rebuild destroyed cities. Former enemies cooperating to help civilians. Soldiers becoming peacekeepers when the fighting ended. The humans are not savage, Zixthara declared. They are the most advanced species I have ever encountered. They have learned to fight wars and then stop fighting them. They have learned to hurt and heal at the same time. They have learned to face the darkness in their own nature and use it to protect what they love. The great hall fell silent. 4. The first time in 10,000 years, the Velani Council had no easy answers. What do you recommend? High Counselor Zephyrin asked finally. I recommend that we learn from them, Zixthara said. I recommend that we establish contact with humanity and ask them to teach us what they know about surviving in a dangerous universe. You want us to learn violence? I want us to learn survival, Zixthara corrected. The humans call their war zone a nightmare. But for them, it is also a training ground. They practice facing the worst possibilities so they can protect the best possibilities. 6 months later, Zixthara returned to Earth aboard the first official Velani diplomatic ship. The alien had been appointed as ambassador to humanity, carrying advanced defensive technologies to trade for human strategic knowledge. As the ship landed in the same field where Zixthara had crashed, the alien looked out at the human soldiers, waiting to greet them. Jake and Lisa were there, along with Colonel Adams and Captain Parker. The war had ended 2 months earlier, and former enemies now worked together to rebuild their world. The aliens' final report to the Velani Council had been simple. The nightmare was not the human capacity for war. The nightmare was our own capacity for denial. The humans have spent their entire history preparing for threats we pretended did not exist. It is time for us to wake up. As Zixthara stepped onto Earth's soil for the second time, the alien reflected on what it had learned. Sometimes the greatest strength looks like the greatest weakness. Sometimes the most civilized behavior appears uncivilized. Sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected sources. The humans had taught the Vellani that peace was not the absence of conflict. Peace was the mastery of conflict, and mastery required practice, even when that practice looked like a nightmare to those who had never faced the darkness.